Now I'm ready to turn the tiller. I've said this to Warren before. Do I tell you you're going to hit the iceberg? I mean, I can see you're going to hit the iceberg. Do you want me to tell you now or just before you hit it? Because we seem like we're not facing reality. I'm sure the banks here have these conversations. So for both of you, Rob, you're the incumbent, for Warren here to step back in. There's no room for pleasantries when you know you've got to make change. But change took time. A quick win is a slash and burn. You cut the arms off. We made the decision to change here. I said, Rob, trust me, that's when the payback will come. But if we did the change here, too late. Game over. Selling up, trimming the sales. Change takes time. So, you said to me, it takes time to make change. What doesn't take a long time?
The decision.
The decision. That's the dashboard's place. Red flare doesn't mean panic. But how many business owners go, oh, it's just another deal. I've got to make another sale. I'll trade my way out of this. You don't need to. It's like, look at the data. You're crazy. Why aren't you looking at your numbers? I'll say this again. The lead indicators come from all the software providers. I can look at them. But the most reconciled, accurate data is your BAS return. And a BAS return is not numbers. These numbers told me what they were doing. I'm not an accountant that looks at numbers. Numbers are action. When you learn, these mean things, not numbers. I'm not changing a number from 800,000 to 1 million. That represented one person doing an extra $200,000 in sales. That's what that represents. It doesn't represent a 20% lift. Someone in the team grew their performance. And I highlight that because at some point, if you're running a bigger business, and there are some people who run big businesses here, you can't be and see everyone performing. So you should only be able to run with a system. Rob, running the business today, looking at the results, seeing things you don't like, what's your sort of master plan now about sort of running a bigger business? Cecil Hills, Wetherell Park, you're the number one agency, but still, how do you run it now that people are in two places?
Same. In terms of, you just got to keep on top of it. You just got to keep watching their KPIs. If you're not on it every day or every week, it just will go backwards. Look, our turnover did go up because of the salespeople performing better, but I'm not selling. That's probably the biggest thing.
But just to highlight it, Rob's not selling. It's his son that sells in the business. But I want to show you this. If I overlay the market numbers that Josh showed, the CoreLogic data, there's this. The shape was a sine curve which stopped here. Rob's trajectory of deals it's a skateboard, it's a triangle ramp. He did this transformation in a flat market, which means a tripling of turnover means your competitor has just lost, someone's just lost that much market share directly. Now, if you want to talk turkey, you're losing market share, protecting market share, or gaining market share. You're one or the other.
Yeah.
Now, for you was protecting market share and then making sure it turned into profit, change from chasing this high dragon number of GCI for ego.
Yeah.
What was more important to you in the long run? How much franchise fee you paid or how much money you made?
That's what we bank.
What the bank wanted you to see.
No, it's what we bank and keep.
Yeah, you keep.
That is the most important thing. It's bigger than market share. It's bigger than, it's what we're in business for. Our business, I suppose, is not a principal selling business. It's a business to create freedom for those in the business as well, those who own the business. And when we stopped focusing on that and we sort of drifted with some of the newer stuff that came into the market, we lost our energy around what made things work. We know how to attract, we know how to pay well, but we've got to pay it in the right way. And you've got to stop bringing on the newer software and making sure whatever software you've got is actually being used to maximise. Knowing what produces the dollars is important, and knowing how to read the data, whether it's good data or bad data, gives you the answers before the emotional stories or your own emotions chime in.
Like one other thing is the teams are healthier in their own teams. They're more productive. The senior person in that team won't put up with an associate because they're paying for them if they're not up to speed or they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's been the biggest thing, and it's given us an opportunity to go back in and clean things, like get our data cleaned up better than it ever has been, and concentrate on things that are probably more important, that'll keep us in terms of keeping the salespeople that are there because we have got good things happening within the business.
Let's be honest, both of you are lifers. It's like you don't have another industry that you really want to handle. You go to work and you're dealing with agents. You've got Mike Murray here, who trains top performing agents. You got to be honest. If you're a real estate business owner and you don't like real estate agents, you are in the wrong business. But it's an implacable nature of these guys. I know, Rob, you've had the stories where you've grabbed the tie off people and you're out of here because they've just started with the next door neighbour shop. You know, you've all been here. You have to have lived and have a sense of humour in real estate, but it still gets nasty. You've got Marwin here, who's the other half of the other suppliers. Normally when there's a dispute about people who have left and tried to compete, you just got to have thick skin and turn up and know you make money out of flawed people who turn up to make money.
The tie thing was, I wanted my tie back.
You wanted his tie back. You'd
It
already
was
given
around
him
the
too
guy's
much.
neck. And it was a long time ago. It was probably 15, 16, 18 years ago.
That's why I was impressed you were calm this time. Now look, this is the problem with leadership. If you don't have a management team, this is the second part, was you took a team that you inherited and you had to ask who's with us. And the 3 or 4 people that were incumbents, when the pressure came on, they just left. But the 2 or 3 people in the team that you probably didn't expect to stand up, they joined you as you transformed your market share to profit share.
Yeah, we had some younger talent that were willing to get into the trenches, and we had some very experienced people that were the issue, that were causing it and didn't want to shift. And were happy for the business to keep going backwards as long as they were secure. So we had to work ways to exit people out, and publicly it looked like we were doing something culturally wrong because they were the best people at taking people out for coffee, but just not doing anything from a management or an execution point of view. And we were grateful we had others that were willing to learn and came on the ride and were willing to stand behind us and do what was needed.
Yeah. And Rob, for you, I always say business is a lonely place. You know, when you're in business, so if you ring me, you're awake at 2 a.m, yeah? So that's when you make your best decisions. Yeah. You have Charmaine that works with you. And
very fortunate with that.
But you run the business with your trusted people because it can be quite lonely. And of course, you know, at the end of the day, it's a team that helps stand beside you to see change through, not just you. I'll tell you why very shortly. Sales is going great, but your PM's not performing. And this is the big challenge. I liken business owners to being the hot elements of water jugs. You've got 2 jugs to run, sales and PM. So when you're in sales mode, sales is boiling, yeah, but there's only one element. So then you go, right, sales is creaming it, but PM comes off. So you pull yourself out of sales and then you inject yourself into PM. And then you get that running and you get those numbers back in line. And by the time you've done that, you look left. Oh, is the sales business operating as we had set and forget? This time round, debit credit, not commission only. They pay for the agents. It's more self-regulated, and that's the part of putting things and structures in place where human nature kicks in, and it's the right type of incentive program for an agent. They get paid on time for effort that they know they're doing now, but you don't have to coach them so closely to be making money. You've just got to make sure that they're looking after their PA more than anything. That's what set and forgets come.
That's pretty much it.
So it's easier to manage the bigger business because the money looks after itself, and they've got a cost, they've got a cover, they've got a minimum performance. Warren, same for you. How do you managing multiple sectors? Because obviously you're only one person, and multiple offices at the same time.
Getting weekly updates with statistical information and understanding what it says. If you don't understand how to read reports, that's where you've got to stop and start to learn, because the information's out there, and you can get the pulse well before it hits your bank account. So I would, from the information we got, we knew 30 days out what the next six weeks auctions or the 6 weeks sales would be. So we're sort of 3 months ahead of what settlements would be. And which levers we had to pull to try and get the right people to be doing the activity to go forward. And again, from the sales manager down, we had to try and educate them on how to read data and activity, and how that would then produce results or not produce results. And that takes sometimes time for people to get on the ban or believe you that this is what's going to occur, because they always want to say, no, that's not the story, or this isn't what's happening in the marketplace.
I think to summarise this and then open up the questions, right? Because we've talked about everything. We're not here to say we've got the answers, but I want to highlight this to you all. The difference that I see is business transaction, business-minded businesses. It's hard to do, but first of all, you've got to have trusted data. You must gain trust in your data and systems. If you're seeing your people, that's not right, that doesn't help you. This gives you a moment to say, I don't want to have this hard conversation with my bookkeeper accountant now. Those numbers can't be right. Okay, you can say that. Eventually they're right. Minus 28%. What's the logic here? At some point, face the music. Secondly, once you've come to face the music and you assess the reality of the situation, what you do then is you can go two ways. Throw the towel in, pivot to take a decision, we're going to go down this path, and commit to it, and then communicate the change. It's that moment, I think, you both demonstrated, was you faced the music, you saw the results, and they couldn't sustain it. So I think this is the mindset. Stop arguing with the messenger and make sure you trust your data. Then get in there and attack the right problems. So many people go, I'm going to go do this. Well, that's not what the numbers are saying. That's not the problem. The problem's over here. So a bit like someone, Mike, you say you treat good data like a car service now with a European car, yeah?
I think the dashboard it tells you when it's broken, right? It'll tell you when it's on its way to being broken. I think that's the key. And that's what I always said to you with Reap, is it's like a dashboard in a car that goes, oh, why did the engine light just come on? Do you know what I mean? That's what I get from it.
I think it's more like the tyre pressure's down. It doesn't mean you sell the business to get out. Just fix the tyre pressure problem. You don't need to change the oil. That's not what's going on here. So we want smart, targeted solutions. Okay, so once we've made change, it's then taking time to execute it to a plan and having a management team with you. Next thing's this. Do we reward agents, and I don't be offended if you're an agent, because I'll make you the most money you can make too on a package, just work your ass off. But the risk that you take as a business owner, you've got your house on the line, you're the one paying the rent, no one ever leaves your company and says, oh, boy, thanks for those 50 leads you gave me, here's your money back, as they go to the next level. What are you saying about people that are going, you're a 24-year agent, oh, look, I've done 300 grand this year, or maybe 150 to 300, somewhere in that range. You're 24, the guys down the road have offered me 80% flat and equity. I mean, I'd start laughing, but what are you doing when you're having those conversations? Because they're entitled, because there are people offering these packages. It's self-inflicted wounds. How do you face that now?
Some you got to say no, and some you try and get a package together that doesn't match it in the short term, but over the long term through performance. But you've got to have enough fortitude to say, well, if I can't do it, I've got to get out there and recruit, grow my own, as well as who can join us. In our business, we'd been around everywhere, and our real opportunity was in grow our own. takes a lot longer, but it gives you a lot more return. It gives you a lot more stability back in the office because you're getting a width, as opposed to keep trying to headhunt everybody. They've got you by the short and curlies, and they've come to you predominantly because of a commission card. And if you can't show them other cultural benefits within the first 12 months, then they're gone in the next couple of years, or somebody else will. So we started to grow our own again, which we hadn't done for a while, which helped get stability. The lead generation to get control of the data and the team, so that we could be giving out at a cost leads and presentations, which again helped to keep people and to get them back performing. So it's about how do we get our existing people to perform back to the levels they should be, regardless of market conditions. How do we grow our width and get control of marketing and lead generation through data capture?
Well, the culture thing is probably very important, and someone gets offered that and they're doing 150 to 300, you'd probably say, well, you can go, but you can sort of just work around that and explain to them how that probably won't work in the long term. But, you know, some of them let them go. But it's more around the people that are probably doing the 600 to $1 million agents that are getting offered these sort of things, and they're the ones a bit harder to, without offering them more, to keep them on there. But if they don't see the value in what we're doing, then they will leave. And so it's just trying to keep one step ahead of them to make sure that when they do get offered that, we're not having to have that conversation again. But we went through it quite a few times with one of the guys there. Not that he was offered that, but he just kept coming back wanting a higher commission card from $0. And there's no doubt as the year goes around and we're coming back to the new financial year and he'll start at the lowest threshold, he will have that same conversation again with us. And, you know, we know what to say.
So 5 minutes to go and open some questions. Look, I think one of the parts of today is to share ideas, but I put up something which is my jargon. It's called the tomorrow guy or gal. You guys are tomorrow guys, not gals. The point is, having your hands off the tool provides benefits. There are people that can do both. That's great, but it's a hell of a difficult thing to be listing someone's property at 10 p.m. at night, and then also at the same time someone's had a dilemma, car crash on the way to another appointment. You can't be doing two things at once. So there is a limitation to being the selling principal at the front, but coming off the tools and providing enough value to justify your remuneration, that must be a big step in adjusting of what you need to do to make that transition, to get the business big enough to justify that and hold on, but then demonstrate value. What's your advice to people that want to make that shift, to go from being the General Patton to the General Eisenhower?
Probably the width of the business. I mean, if it's a three-man business and you're a main producer, you can't do it. That's simple as that. I've got no other advice.
So know your numbers.
Yeah. But if you've got width in the business and, you know, it's performing well and you can see that it doesn't need you as much, then you can, transition out of sales.
Do you value a $300,000 profit off other people's effort or a $700,000 personal selling margin? Which one's easier for you to make on a sustainable basis without effort?
Me selling 700,000, probably no.
Yeah. But the point is, a profit from other people's effort is a good return, and it shouldn't be sniffed at. But I can tell you, there are people in this room say $200,000 profit. I wouldn't get out of bed for that. I go, really? Not many people make that much profit when you add back the market salary for a principal. Shock. But everyone talks about it like it's loose change. This is where we get this false impression of good performance. So I sort of agree with you. You've got to have critical width to justify being a leader off the tools. And Warren, for you, naturally as a manager, you weren't the world's best lister and seller, but you're a systems guy, yeah?
Yeah, I made the decision when I went to buy my first business that I wanted to have a business that didn't rely on my income, be it right or wrong. That was just my choice. Yeah. I see other lead agents, certainly in the McGrath brand, that are the mega machine. And they get width because then they hire people that are the business drivers. And it doesn't matter if you're the 100% share owner or not, you've got a special skill. Whether you're the lead agent or you're the person who wants to manage and drive the business itself needs somebody in those spots. It's hard to be in both and then get the critical width that you need to get both in PM, sales, and if you want to be multiple offices. So coming back to your own identity, who you want to be, what you want to have, and if it's width and scale, then where do you sit best? And if you're the best lister in that area, fantastic, then who is going to be driving your business and making sure that it's following the foundations that keep it profitable and you get paid as an agent, not as a director, so that performance is linked and everyone is paid on what they do within the business.
Okay. How about being busy? Busy, someone calls the word busy idiots. Yeah, you get really busy managing the business you've got and just constantly deal with the business you're managing. How do you put in discipline to work on the business you don't have? The tomorrow business. When do you make time to deal with, well, have we spoken to anyone new to join us? Are we looking over the fence at opportunities that aren't in today's business? You're managing them, but you free up some time? Are you bringing that discipline to your week?
You really got to have it programmed in, and I have someone also pushing me from behind and just nudging me. You haven't spoken to that agency, or yeah.
The easiest phone calls to stop having are the ones about the business that's not in there. But those meetings, they are critical to a successful, healthy business. Okay, so look, we'll just open up the floor for the last few minutes. Look, there's a hell of a story we've seen here, but I do want to highlight this conference doesn't tell you what to do. You should do this, you should do that. We're telling you, see what people did. And that's a big quality part that I want to emphasize. So thank you, Rob. Thank you, Warren. Any questions from the floor? Don't feel there's no stupid questions, but we are finishing now before the toast. So if there's no questions, Mike, I'll pass it to you.
Over there, Chris.
Sorry, Merce, I'll throw a question at you. Mate, the word scale gets thrown around a lot. If I focus on property management, where do you think a business needs to get to in terms of properties under management to actually be achieving some level of scale?
Yeah. So I've got a really easy answer to that. You can grow from 0 to 150 with no churn. That seems great, but you don't make any profit. There's none. As a full-time property manager and you've got rent, if I allocate overheads, there's just no money. At 400, it's worth a lot, but it doesn't make any cash flow. At 850, you're making cash flow, but you still have everyone working a portfolio. At 1,000, you can afford to have a full-time regional property manager person, but they can also look after 2,000 properties. So you're better to be at 2,000 than at 1,000 because it's the second 1,000 that pays for that person and halves the cost to your business. Was that okay? Because that's the steps. You're not going to make money at the start. It's worth a bit. At 1,000, you've got the ability to have the expert off the tools, but you should get to 2,000 if you can get to that.
So what's your advice then to someone who wants to go out and has maybe started their own business and been going for a few years and have gotten to that 150?
Yeah.
And typically you'll find that they're probably doing less in terms of sales, but that's that ego point of it. So
I have a big point on that.
Yeah.
Never
I thought you might, that's why I asked the question.
outgrow your sales division. If your rent roll's 2,000 and you've got 3 agents doing 450, you're rooted. Because your churn will outstrip your referral rate. You've got no chance. Then you've got to go out and give away 6 months free and do what you need to do. So the relationship I see as a natural synergy is 75% agent PM, and that is agent sales. So the sales division would be 3 times the size of the rent roll. So 75-25 would be the ratio. So if you've got a $7.5 million GCI business, you can have a $2.5 million rent roll. That will naturally refer to itself and replace churn. People that get overweight on rent rolls really are susceptible to run off if they can't find churn. So that's the element that I put a paraphrase on what I just said. Some people buy their way to scale. That's a bit risky because it's an evaporating asset. Yep.
Thanks, mate. And congratulations on what you've done. I've watched the evolution of this and it's amazing. Well done.
Thanks, Stu. Good on you, mate. Any other questions? Mike, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your vulnerability and honesty and positive stories. So give everyone a round of applause.